So, you just started CrossFit, and unless you came from a super yoga background and you're super flexible, you probably struggle with some kind of mobility in the sport. What we're going to discuss today is why mobility is important, why you should care about it, and kind of like why I didn't care about it in the beginning, and then how it kind of bit me in the butt. And then go from there, why it's important, and then how you should attack it to make sure that you are mobile and you are staying flexible and are hopefully staying healthy. I'm kind of hoping that it doesn't rain all of a sudden, because if I get stuck out here in the vineyard in a rainstorm, this camera's gonna melt like the Wicked Witch of the West.
You cursed brat! Look what you've done! I'm melting!
So the first thing we have to discuss is why should you care about mobility? Who cares if you're flexible? Well, the thing is, when you do CrossFit and do this sport, you put your body into a lot of, I'm not going to say dangerous, but a lot of positions that aren't necessarily natural for the human body. Because as we've come to find out, after years and years and most people having certain jobs, a lot of us sit at a desk. We sit down for a long time, and so our hip flexors are really tight or our glutes are super inactive. And there's a lot of things that really affect our body and don't allow us to be very mobile. Then when we go into our CrossFit box or go into our gym and start doing certain movements like squats or overhead squats or muscle ups or all these really complicated movements, you come to find out that you can actually injure yourself really easily. And from what I found in my past is when I was the most mobile or the most flexible at that point, I was also usually my most healthy part of my career. Because if you stay mobile, then if your body gets put in those awkward or weird positions, your body can usually overcome it, get around it, and still survive and get through it. Whereas if you're really tight because you don't stretch, or your body's super tight because you don't really care about your mobility, if you get into those positions in an overhead squat and it kind of gets out of whack a little bit, that's the kind of the moment where you start to tear something or injure yourself. So anyways, mobility to me is really important because if you stay mobile, if you stretch a lot, if you stay limber, you're less likely to get injured. And from my perspective, it's really important in our sport. So we now know that if you want to stay healthy in the sport and hopefully stay out of injury, it's important to mobilize. It's important to stay limber, to stretch, to really stretch those areas that aren't really good, that your body's not really good at. Now, you might be asking yourself, okay, well, how do I determine what areas of my body, I'm not very flexible in? Like, how do I know my hips aren't flexible? Or how do I know that my ankles aren't flexible? And that's a great question. And there's a couple ways to go around that. Obviously, you can do it yourself and kind of determine that from doing it yourself. One other way, which is a sponsor that I work with, is GoWOD has an app out there that allows you to log in for free, do some real quick, like 6 to 7 minutes of stretching and testing, and then it will tell you, hey, your hips are really tight, or hey, your ankles are really tight, or hey, you need to work on your overhead positioning. And so that's really beneficial to kind of determine. I mean, you might already know what you're not good at, but it's really beneficial when someone else who's done the research and someone else does the legwork tells you a professional opinion, hey, you're really tight in your overhead, and this is why. Now, if you now know, let's say you now know what you're not good at, you now need to determine, okay, what are some good ways to attack that? And so some good ways to attack that, if you know what you're not good at, is like I mentioned in previous videos, set aside time for yourself to stretch. Set aside time that now you know, hey, my ankles aren't very flexible, then I need to work on them. Then you need to set aside time to do that. So for instance, Jake Flowen, who I work with, has some really inflexible ankles. Like him and doing pistol squats is probably the funniest thing you'll ever see because he hates them to death. He does pistols once a year is usually his claim to fame. Now, he knows his ankles aren't very flexible. And so to get around that, he actually keeps a kettlebell and some mobility tools in his apartment just for ankle mobility. He practices it all the time, and that's good because he's not good at it. And so for him practicing ankle mobility has really helped him and saved him probably from some bad injuries that could have happened had he decided to say, oh, my ankles are tight, I don't really care about it, I'll just work around it, I'll get through it. Because that's usually when an injury occurs. One other option that GoWOD has is after you sign up and do the free testing to determine what's really tight in your body, they also have the ability to, if you decide to do a premium membership, which is really cheap, I'm pretty sure it's like a cup of coffee, which let's be real with ourselves, you could probably cut one coffee out of your life for 1 month. It's not that big of a deal. And for the premium membership, it'll give you daily pre-workout and post-workout stretching that's based upon what you're not good at, which is pretty cool. So when I did it, and I'll flash my results on the screen, you'll see there are some areas that I'm really, really bad at. My ankles are great, but my hips are terrible. And so now knowing that, I know when I go into the gym, what are some certain ways to stretch and to help my hips out and to help my knees out. Because as we all know, the body the body is interconnected. Sorry, the UPS man is here. Sorry, the UPS man was here and caught me filming myself in the Great Vineyard. That's just really, really awkward. But anyways, like I was saying, the body is always interconnected. It's like that song, you know, the knee bone's connected to the elbow. I don't know the song. Anyways, you get the point. Anyways, a lot of things are connected. And so from my perspective, when my hips are out of whack, or if I don't stretch my hips, or if I'm not really accurately or stretching adequately, I find that I get injured. And so I have a lot of knee issues, and I have from my past. And that's mostly because my hips are usually not that great. And so my goal and my reason for stretching more, and my reason for using GoWOD and determining, hey, what am I not good at? And now I can do daily stretches that are based upon what I'm not good at and who I am. Hopefully, they will allow me to stay injury-free next year. They will allow me to have my knees stay healthy after CrossFit. They will allow me to be able to squat more and squat more often, knowing that my knees are protected and I'm safe, that if I get into some uncomfortable positions, my body can still take it, move through it, and stay healthy. And so hopefully, guys, that kind of helps you out and letting you know that mobility is important. Don't skip out on mobility. And whatever you do, whatever kind of mobility you do that you find is good for you, whether it's go to a yoga class or spend 10 minutes stretching a day or downloading an app and using it like GoWOD, whatever it is, you really need to set aside time to do mobility to stay healthy and to really attack the areas that you're not good at, whether it's your hips or your ankles or your knees or whatever the case may be. Make sure you spend time doing it because it'll allow you to stay healthier longer, allow you to stay in the sport longer, and when you get down with CrossFit, you're not gonna have some really bad arthritis, and that's a huge benefit. Anyways, guys, hope that helps. Anyways, have a great day. We'll talk to you guys later. See ya.